Welcome. There's a guy that played basketball at Dayton named Dan Hipsher, who really doesn't look anything like me. And for years, Dan Patrick said, well, he kicked my ass back at Dayton when he was a Flyer, and it turned out it wasn't me because I was never there playing open gym. So the senility hit DP long before right now. DP nice enough to join us now.
It was just
Dayton. How
another
are you, my
generic
friend?
white guy that I was playing hoops with. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe I played against Dan Dakich. Oh, no, it's Dan Hipsher, who was assistant coach at the University of Dayton. He guarded me, and it wasn't pretty for him. And then I felt bad that I invoked your name because you, of course, the only person in the history of mankind to shut down Michael Jordan. My bad, and I apologize.
That's all right. That's all right. We all make mistakes, and if I'd have guarded you, you would have known, and it would have been memorable for you. It would have been a problem. DP, before we get into stuff, for years and years and years, you see that red sweater, whatever, bobblehead right in front of you? I always thought that was Coach Knight, the one right in front of you. That is not Bob Knight, is it?
No, it's Lou Holtz.
Oh, man. All right.
Yeah. People do think that it's Coach, but it is. That's Lou Holtz when he was at Arkansas.
I did not know that for years and years. And then one day I looked closer. I couldn't tell who it was, but I knew it wasn't, my guy. Hey, Dan, news today, Jerry West. I was looking in. This was your idol, correct? Jerry West was the guy you emulated or followed or loved when you were growing up as a kid following hoops.
Yeah, my dad, I remember he would point out certain athletes and say, you want to pattern your game, whether it was baseball or basketball or football, like that guy plays the game the right way. And I wasn't a Laker fan. I was a Celtic fan. And a Cincinnati Royals fan because the Royals were there before they went to Kansas City and then Sacramento. And I remember 1971, the Lakers came to town. So you had Wilt and you had Jerry West, and they were playing against Nate Archibald and the Royals. And I went down to watch the game, got Jerry West autograph. And I just remember I was fascinated with his ability. His last dribble was always this crisp, like really sharp. So he was already going up for his jumper, and he would be, dribbling really hard that last time and going up. And he really brought in he was the modern jump shooter. If you look back in the old days, Jerry came in 1960, and he's shooting jumpers. Everybody else is shooting set shots. And I just remember the athleticism that he had that kind of stood out from others. And, over the years, got to know him, he's been on my show many, many times. And it hit me hard today, Dan, because I saw him every time I would see him, I would see my dad. My dad died at a young age, 54. But every time I would see Jerry, and they were similar ages, and my dad and Jerry West looked similar. And I just said to him one time, I see my dad when I see you. So I felt like I buried my dad again today. And that's why he was always very generous with his time, no matter what. When Kobe died, he joined us the next day. Jerry Buss, when he died, I mean, he was always available. If there was a trade in the NBA, if there was controversy, he was always there. And I had just great appreciation for somebody who could have been a know-it-all, and he wasn't. He was a great listener, and so it hit me pretty hard today for a variety of reasons.
Dan, encompassing everything, has anybody ever had a better NBA career?
Well, I think he's the most impactful person in the history of the NBA, because if I look at what he did as a player, and I know he only won one title, he lost 8. He was so damn good. He was the MVP of the Final Four at West Virginia, and his team didn't win the national title. He was so good. He was the MVP of an NBA Finals that he didn't win. I think we forget how great he was. And then you factor in coach and GM, front office. I don't think there's anybody who has succeeded at all of those levels the way he's done. He's had a couple of Hall of Fame careers. And, oh, by the way, you're the logo for the league.
And, I don't know how anybody, you, or Pat Riley would feel about this, but I don't know. He seemed like he was a mentor to the other guy like him in the league who's done all of those things, Pat Riley. Maybe not as accomplished as a player, but pretty damn accomplished as a player. You add that on, too, the fact that he was – and I don't know if this is true or not, but it feels like to me that he was a mentor to Riley. Was he? And was he upset about the portrayal of him in that Winning Time documentary, Dan? Do you know anything about that?
I don't want to speak out of turn about that, Dan, but I was disappointed in how he was portrayed. I even spoke to the actor who portrayed him, and he said that he learned the mannerisms. He learned about Jerry West by watching all the interviews that I did with him. That was his introduction to Jerry West. But Jerry was very competitive. I'm sure there was a fiery temper. I just don't think they portrayed him fairly. But I would rather not speak on what Jerry thought of that. I can guess, but I don't want to speak on that.
Dan, who should coach who should coach the Lakers?
I'd bring back Phil Jackson, see if Phil come back for a third time here. I don't know. It's tricky, Dan. When you think about it, you got LeBron. How long do I have LeBron for? I have to cater to him. Then I have to probably draft his son. Now do I have to have his son on the roster? I got AD, who played great last year and played in a lot of games. Can I count on that? You have a lot of role players who didn't live up to their end of the bargain as well. And the West is young and it's loaded. And so I think it's going to be an uphill climb, whoever comes in there. And I don't know if you last only as long as LeBron does, and then you bring in somebody else. That's why Hurley made sense. If you were going to give him autonomy, that he got to do whatever, he's involved in everything, and he's going to be there for guaranteed 6 years. I just don't think Dan Hurley ever wanted to go to the Lakers. I thought it was a leverage play, and I think that's what it turned out to be. That's not who he is. He's not ready for L.A. I don't know if anybody's ready for L.A. Even when you think you are, you're not. Everything is magnified. Everything. And you got some thick skin. And I think Dan Hurley he's cracked the code in college basketball. He knows how to do this. He knows, unlike Calipari in all those years, getting all the biggest names, Hurley said, I'm going to get guys who can play in my system, not let's get the most talented guys. You played in a pickup game before where you see a guy and you're like, damn, that guy's really good, and he'd be the last guy picked. Well, just playing boring fundamental basketball. Hurley is getting guys who may not have, big name recognition, but they know how to fit in his system. And I do think, Bill Murray's son, Luke, has done an unbelievable job as well with their offensive scheme. That's why I thought he was going to stay, just because why not? I've got this figured out. At least he's certainly given that impression.
I told Danny in an interview he did on our show that he should charge a cover charge. He should say, all right, you got to put skin in the game. You got to pay us $10,000, and we're going to open up NIL to you. We're going to open up all this stuff that we're doing, but you got to have skin in the game. And he's like, that's the greatest idea I've ever heard, and I'd be out of business in about 6 months. You know what I mean?
But he's an East Coast guy, and his wife,
right?
He said that his wife wouldn't even go further south than Jersey when I asked him about the Kentucky job. That's why I just didn't see it as a fit. And his dad and his mom are here. I know Bobby's at Arizona State, but look, I'm happy he stayed at Connecticut. I like when coaches stay and not jump around. I like when they're honest to their recruits, to their fan base, to their boosters. I like that. It's rare. I like that. And maybe he's old school, and I'm fine with that. I hope he stays there for a long time.
You think you still have to ask LeBron's permission? Like Izzo told me when he was dealing with the Cavs, he couldn't get to LeBron. Gilbert wanted to hire him. He said, I couldn't even talk to LeBron, so there's no way I was taking the job. You think at this stage in his career, you got to get LeBron's blessing to be the coach of the Lakers?
Danny Hurley had it because after the podcast that Hurley did with J.J. Redick, LeBron's like, oh, my God, this guy is a genius. Like he tweeted this out after listening. And, so here he's listening to JJ's podcast, not realizing, oh, my God, maybe I don't want JJ as my coach. I want the guy he's interviewing because he's got all the answers there. And I thought that was kind of an interesting moment there. And I thought maybe a pivotal moment if Danny Hurley was going to get the job that JJ wants, but JJ would lose it because he interviewed Dan Hurley, and then LeBron goes, oh, my God, I'm going to co-sign on that. But I think LeBron's probably had the most manicured, cultivated, curated career of any athlete. Everything is thought out, everything. Who I play with, when I'm going to leave, who I'm bringing in, what we're going to do. Would I be surprised if he's not involved in this? I would be, especially at the end of your career. It's almost more important of who's coaching me the last couple of years. What kind of style are we going to play? Are you going to draft my son? What else are we going to do? Do you have all the answers? LeBron has not had great coaches, but even when he's had great coaches like Ty Lue and Eric Spoelstra, it didn't always go that well. They could have had Ty Lue come back. They just had to pay him a little more. When he was with Spoelstra in Miami, remember the timeout where he bumps into Spoelstra? Like, LeBron has had quite a few coaches here. And that's where you have to go. Is it me or is it them? Darvin Ham is gone. Luke Walton is gone. Bickerstaff is gone. Vogel is gone. At some point, maybe it is partly you here. You may not get him hired, but you may get him fired.
DP, in my town, Indy, Caitlin Clark is all the rage. She's not on the Olympic team. The world exploded. It's one of the rare things I can kind of see both sides, but if you want to grow the game, she's got to be involved. If I'm NBC, I'm hiring Caitlin Clark as an analyst. Where are you at with the whole Caitlin Clark saga?
Well, we were the first national interview she ever did at Iowa. And because I don't have a life and I'm watching any kind of basketball. And I said, when I watched her over a weekend, I said, we got to get her on. She's Steph Curry. She's unbelievable. And, we've had her on a couple of times since then. And, certainly what she's done with college basketball. And I've been a huge fan of hers. The style, fun, it's different. But I don't think she's one of the 12 best players right now in the WNBA. Now, when you say grow the game, she's not going to grow the game if she's just on the team because she'll be sitting. So let's say she's the 12th best player. How much playing time is she going to get? And is that really growing the game? From a marketing perspective, I would have her on the team, but I think you got to be fair to the other players. And if you're going to put her on, who are you taking off? And I do think that there's probably going to be maybe two players who aren't able to play due to injuries, and maybe she gets a chance to be on the team. I just don't know if she's going to play that much, Dan. And has she grown the WNBA? Exponentially. Unbelievable. Transcendent. But I've watched every one of her games. Games, not highlights. And she's worn down. And I see her struggle. What she did at Iowa against competition, you can't get away with here. Are they physical? Yes, but they watch the You have a lot of people who are novices who now want to be experts. They haven't watched the WNBA. And then they watch and they go, oh, my God, they're physical. Yes, they are physical. And, she has to adapt to that. I talked to Reggie Miller today, and I said, look, you have a slight build. What did you have to do? He goes, after my rookie year, I knew I had to bulk up. I just couldn't. He said, Michael Jordan bulked up to take on the Pistons. He goes, I couldn't do that. I think Caitlin could use a break and then allow her to exhale. She's carried college basketball. She has brought so many eyeballs to the WNBA. I think she could use it, rest, and then come back after what she's learned. And hopefully we get to see a little bit more of what we saw at Iowa instead of what we've seen so far in the first, 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah, it's one of the few issues. I'm on both sides. I agree with everything you said, but I think, if you're going to, I think she on a team, given her popularity right now, makes it more interesting to everybody. And if I'm NBC,
Yes.
look, I'm spending
Yes.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's one of the few issues. If I were on the committee picking an Olympic team, I don't give a rat's ass who is popular and who isn't. I got to win a gold medal. And, I get it. They're the most dominant. All right, I want to throw something at you, and I think this is me being old and Bobby Knighty. I say tonight two things financial. One, Aaron Rodgers. I think by now players want to play other games by Zoom. Like they're paying Rodgers like 40-some million, and they don't ask NFL guys to do a whole lot, but you should be at OTA. I know we're not going to care about it. But again, I said it, I preface it. This is me being, like if I'm paying you $40 million, move the event that you got to go to. And tonight, I'm paying 35 to 40, whatever it is, to Kyrie Irving. I got to have him drop 30. I got to have him go crazy. If you're ever going to get a return on an investment, DP, it's got to be tonight for Irving. Is this like me being curmudgeon guy? Don't worry about the money, worry about the play. Or is there some validity to what I'm saying?
I think there's validity to the Kyrie Irving part of this. He does have to go off. The over-under is 23.5. He has to go over that if they're going to win. That's not being get-off-my-lawn guy. Aaron Rodgers, that might be get-off-my-lawn guy. But, here's my problem with this. Aaron's the leader. I know you had this scheduled. I get it. Well, everybody else is there and you're not there. It's just a bad look for a guy who played 4 plays or 3.5 plays last year. There's just drama. It feels like Robert Saleh, the coach, is always at a press conference, always trying to explain what kind of shit just went on or what he has to explain. Aaron should be there. Now, it may not matter during the season. I just think you show up and the players see you. You set the example that you want. I just don't think you can go, hey, I'm on a European vacation. I scheduled this, and it's really important to me. Okay. How about you give back, I don't know, $3 million that we're paying you this month or whatever it is? How about just give maybe I could give that to Hassan Reddick since he's holding out a training camp with the Jets. Like, I'm paying you to go on a vacation and you're not even here with the team. It sends a bad message. And it's unfortunate because as great as Rodgers is, are we going to remember him for being as great as Rodgers is? And I wonder about that. He's like Kyrie. They both won 1 title. They're both considered, Rodgers, he's the most talented quarterback ever. Okay. Kyrie, he might be the most talented player ever. Okay. And what do they have? They have 1 title to show for it. They're part of the problem, too, not necessarily part of the solution.
To that point, C.J. Stroud said he'd rather have Eli Manning's career than Aaron Rodgers' career. On the surface, I thought, And then I started thinking about it, and I kind of get it. I mean, the 2 titles, because titles have become a monstrous thing, right? I mean, I guess they always were, but it seems like now it's like yes or no, man. You got enough? Yes. You don't have enough? No.
Well, I think it's one of those that you want, if you're the Texans, C.J. Stroud to say he wants Eli's career, because that means you won 2 titles. If you say, hey, we want an individual at quarterback, and he wins 4 MVPs, that makes me a little nervous, as opposed to Eli, we know, won 2 titles and beat the Patriots. You want that team guy, whereas Rodgers may not come off as that more individualistic. And I think C.J. Stroud, it was the politically correct answer. I mean, I'm sure they'd all love to be able to play like Aaron Rodgers. The end result of what Eli did, that I think is what was obvious, that he had to take that side.
Dallas get it done tonight? Does Edmonton win a game in their series in the Cup?
I had the Panthers winning when the playoffs started. I thought Panthers were, I'm a novice. And then, I had the Celtics beating the Mavs, so I'm not surprised at anything. I'm surprised at Edmonton's. I'm waiting for Connor. This is Connor McDavid's moment, and he's not taking advantage of it. This is where you have that young player, generational talent. Now you have eyeballs on the sport, and that's all you ask for. It's like Gretzky in hockey, Tiger in golf, Caitlin Clark in basketball. You got a chance. You got an audience. Take advantage of that. Now let me see what you can do. That's been the unfortunate part, because as much as we want to say Connor McDavid's the next Gretzky, there is no next Gretzky. But this is your stage. Now do something on it.
That's what I've said about Mike Trout, Dan. Like, you and I are old enough. They're great moments. Chris Chambliss with a home run in the right field. Greg Nettles making diving plays. Brooks Robinson doing, that's what I say about Mike Trout. At some point, and so Ohtani, too, looks like he's going to play in the playoffs. But to me, this is where you got to go. Like, Trout, you got to have a playoff moment. You got to stay healthy, but you got to have a playoff moment. McDavid, you got to have 3 goals. And, it's just what the greats do.
Yeah, but here, this is the tricky part where we're hypocritical in the media. If Mike Trout says, I want out, then we're like, oh, he's not loyal. Oh, they paid you all this money. Remember when Kevin Garnett stayed in Minnesota? And we were like, God, he's got to get out of Minnesota. And then he gets out, and we're like, oh, okay, look at him. He cares about himself. I'm like, he can't win. And then he wins the title with the Celtics. He stayed longer than he needed to in Minnesota. Trout is at least loyal. And we grew up in an era where my favorite players stayed with my favorite teams for their entire careers. Tony Gwynn, God rest his soul, said to me, the Players Association got really upset because he took less money to stay with the Padres. And he said, I didn't want to try to fool anybody. This is my home. I want to play here, but they wanted me to go out on the open market and get other bids so I could jack up, everybody else's salary. And he said, I wasn't going to do that. Nobody would have believed me in the first place. And I had great respect for that. But hey, if you're a player, get whatever you can. And if you want to go to another team and try to win a title, chase a title, go ahead. Go ahead. So if you're loyal, we're going to be critical. And if you're not loyal, we're going to be critical.
DP, last thing, NIL. You understand the college game. People tell me, well, it won't survive. I don't know. Look, I don't know what that means. It can't survive. Seems like ratings were pretty good. But this every year free agency, if I were coaching, that would be a problem. Where are you at with NIL? Where are you at with college athletics right now?
Well, as long as you have to report everything, you're paying taxes on everything. Like, this never should have gotten to this point. It's embarrassing. The leaders in college academics and athletics allowed this to happen. And I remember you could see it coming. It's almost like the Titanic. It can't sink. All of a sudden, boom, there's NIL in the transfer portal, and they didn't see it. And all of a sudden, you're going, we're sinking. We're bringing on water here. And this, these people with really big jobs, big titles, they screwed this up because they thought. I had a former coach who said to me, you keep harping on this on your show like I'm going to pay an offensive lineman. And I said, you will. Oh, what am I going to pay? I'm going to give them free pizza? And I go, offensive linemen and defensive linemen are the cornerstone of college football. You have to have those things. And he thought I was crazy. He said the only one who's going to get paid is a quarterback. And what's he going to make? $100,000? I go, they were making that back in the 60s and 70s. They're going to make $1 million. He goes, no one is going to pay them $1 million. So this is a former coach, successful coach, and he had his head in the sand as well. The transfer portal, to me, worries me more than NIL. If you get what you get, okay, fine. It's above board. We know what you're making. You're paying taxes. Fine. Revenue sharing. You want to do that? I don't know how you're going to do it, but that day is coming. That judgment day is coming. The transfer portal worries me just because you want a little bit of continuity with your sports, that you know who that person is, you know the teams, Now it feels like you go to a school and all of a sudden you go, I'm not playing that much. I'm transferring. Or there was a player in the NCAA tournament and he was negotiating while he was in the tournament to go to another school. But he was also negotiating with his current school to keep him.
Yes.
I mean, holy shit. But this is what's going on. Now, coaches have given the blueprint of, yeah, I'm going to be here. And then they leave the next day. I remember there was a coach on a Sunday met with a recruit. This is probably 20 years ago. Said, yes, there were rumors he was going to the NFL. Well, he left the next day to go to the NFL after telling this recruit he was going to be there. So there's no loyalty. I just want sanity. I'm not asking much, just some financial, fiscal sanity instead of everybody's out for themselves, from athletic directors, commissioners, coaches, players. And, the madness has to stop. It's got to be corralled a little bit so we don't lose what is really important.
Tommy Tuberville and Joe Manchin are trying to run something through Congress to put guardrails on it. I don't know when that's ever worked for anybody, but I do think you have to protect the school and you have to protect the sport at some point. I'm with you. 18 to 23-year-olds, give them all the money they want. I don't care. What does it matter to me? But I do think you got to protect the sport, and I do think you got to protect the school. And right now, I don't know that we're doing either. I don't know.
Yeah.
What was Billis always say? The NCAA tournament is idiot-proof. And he's right. And the college football playoff is idiot-proof, right? I mean, the biggest things are idiot-proof. So when people tell me, well, it can't sustain, I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What's going to go away? I don't have an answer to that, and I never get an answer to that.
Yeah, but I think it can sustain because we hand out a trophy at the end of it. People don't watch college basketball. They wait until the tournament. And then you fill out a bracket. Like, you have to have a novelty. That, okay, I'll watch because I filled out my bracket, or, hey, I'm betting on these things. And then you get a trophy at the very end. You may not remember anybody on any team. You may not be able to, say 3 starters on, Connecticut. But I don't know if the NCAA is worried about that. College football, now we got the playoffs. Everybody got all their money. Now you have a couple of home games to start out the playoffs. You still keep the bowl integrity, and you get a trophy at the very end. I don't know if we're as invested as we were when we were growing up, where I knew that guy was going to be there and I was going to be able to watch him. Now, that's selfish on my part, but it's hard to go, okay, I'm fine not knowing these players. There's no tradition. There's no more rivalries. Like, nobody cares. USC and UCLA and the Big Ten. Like, what are we doing? Do we need to do that? And this is what we're going to do, Dan. Mark my words. If I'm still alive when this happens, college football will eventually get back to, well, not back to, but a blueprint that I, thought about 8 years ago. We're going to get the top 50 college football schools, and then we're going to divvy them up. And then we're going to have them regionally placed. And then you're going to have a model that's like the Premier League or the NFL. So you'll be playing, 5 schools in your division, and then you'll be playing 5, schools in your division. And then we'll have a playoff, and then we'll have a playoff, and then we'll have a Super Bowl for college football. The money is there. You have the haves and the have-nots. It has to happen. But I think that's where we're headed with college football, is just make it pro football, minor league pro football, because it really is. Remember when Walter Byers coined student athlete? I mean, it was brilliant. Student athlete. Okay. Well, what about the car that Eric Dickerson got at SMU? I said, no, you're athletic students. That's all you are. You're not student athletes. But I just think there has to be some kind of sanity here. And that's why I look at UCLA and USC going to the Big Ten. Now we might get back to, no, UCLA and USC are going to be in this quadrant over here, and you're going to have 4 other schools that you don't have to travel cross country. You might have games outside, but they're going to be outside of your division, outside of your conference there. but you're going to have everybody under the same umbrella. College basketball is going to, end up with, 96 schools in March Madness. Like, why not?
I agree.
It's just going to happen because nobody's going to say every time, oh, they're adding more schools. We're like, okay, more games. Okay. More revenue. Okay. Why would you stop that? We never go, on second thought, let's go back to 32 schools. If you don't make the tournament, you should probably be fired as a head coach. Like, everybody makes the tournament. Like, nobody will have any bitching to do. Like, we're a bubble team. There's 96 schools in the tournament. Shut up. But that's where we're headed. I do think that. Now I sound like the get off my lawn guy. That's why we get along.
That's why football coaches wanted like no playoff and 8 million bowl games, because they didn't want to hear, hey, you're in year 5, you haven't been to the playoff yet. And you win the last game of the year in the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl like Indiana did when I was in college, and everybody celebrates, man. It's like, oh, that's exactly why. Hey, DP, are you retiring? What are you retiring from exactly?
This show? Well, my show, not your show.
What is
that? I don't know. I want to go out on a certain level, at least in my mind. I still want to be relevant. I want to be good at my job. And I can tell that I was, starting to slip a little bit knowledge-wise, forgetting some things. I'd gone through some health things, and, I was going through, some medical stuff. And I don't know. You have to be selfish to be good in just about anything, it feels like. And I thought I'd been selfish to get to this point, and I didn't want to continue to be selfish to my family. And I don't know. It just, I came home one day and I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to retire in 4 years. And she goes, okay. I said, are you good with that? She goes, yeah. I said, okay. It was that simple. But, you don't want somebody to tell you to retire. You want to announce or decide when you're going to retire. And I figured I'd get a lot of nice farewell gifts. Nobody can say, oh, holy shit, it snuck up on me. I didn't know you were retiring. I mean, you got 3.5 years to get me something nice, like an autographed Dan Dakich jersey from his days playing for Bob Knight, something like that I could hang in my bedroom at home.
I think it'd end up in the garbage. And a bottle of Woodford signed, autographed bottle of Woodford. I'm going to get you a bobblehead, a Dan Dakich Bowling Green State University bobblehead.
Oh, God, that's going to scare the kids. I don't know. How much hair did you have at Bowling Green? Because you didn't have any when you left. Yeah?
No, not bad. Not bad. Not bad.
Why didn't you ever coach again? Why didn't you ever? What happened after Bowling Green?
I went to Indiana. I enjoyed my life. You're one of the brightest guys. When I watched college basketball on ESPN, I watched games because you were doing them, and I would text you that I'm watching. Thank you.
I don't know. Can you stop? You retired from coaching. You walked away right then. So something must have come through your head.
Yeah, I didn't like players. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't like players. I did.
Okay.
Dan, I swear to God, I got the job at ESPN. This radio thing took off, and Urban Meyer's a dear friend. Is like, you're going back. I go, no. He loved players. Like, he did. He loved having them at their house until he went to Ohio State, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to make this more of a business. Our backyards were connected. I would have the basketball team over for barbecues. He would have the football team over, and he was having fun. And I was like, yeah, I got to get out of here. When the hell time these guys leaving? Now I love them all now. They're great. But DP, I appreciate the compliment though.
Yeah, but you had to walk away. That's what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to walk away from it and hold my head high that I had a 40-year broadcasting career. And I'm very, 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 very lucky to be able to do that and to go out on my own terms, leave ESPN and survive, got to do the Olympics, got to, host Football Night in America, handed out the Super Bowl trophy, was part of Sports Center. Like, I'm very, very, very lucky. And there was one day when I was doing the 6 o'clock Sports Center, and I remember I threw it out to Sal Paolantonio with the Eagles. And he's doing his report. I'm not listening to anything he's saying because in my mind, I'm thinking, I am going through the motions here. I'm not getting any better. And I remember coming home that night and I said to my wife, I said, I don't think I want to stay at ESPN. She goes, okay. I said, no, I don't know. I think I might want to leave after this contract's up because I wasn't getting any better. And that's why I went on my own because I needed to get my ass kicked. And we did the show for 3 years in my attic at my house. It wasn't anything glamorous that I was leaving for, but I needed to jumpstart that again. And I accomplished it. I'm the first person to get out of Alcatraz and swim safely to the shore and live to tell about it. And I'm good. I'm good. I've accomplished what I've wanted to accomplish, and it's time for somebody else to come in and do this. Somebody younger.
You're great, man. You're not good. You're great. And what you did was be a trailblazer, and you're right. I mean, look, I people don't leave ESPN unless they ask you to leave. You know why I left? Other than the fact that I maybe was too controversial, I got bored. I get bored easy. And I got tired of, well, don't do this, don't do that. And I got like, I started not liking coaches. I'm talking to them. I'm like, there's got to be more. So I go to OutKick where they let me say whatever the hell I want and I don't get in trouble. It's pretty good.
Well, that's sort of with, leaving ESPN is I didn't really have a boss. When I was at ESPN, you're told what you're supposed to talk about. You're told you have to have ESPN analyst on. You're told like it's an echo chamber. And I just kept thinking we need to have people from outside instead of just our analyst on. And, that was not met well. And it just felt like, I don't know, when Disney took over and then the walls kind of got tighter, things shrunk. It wasn't as much fun there. And I just thought, God, I'm going to be the old man doing Sports Center. I'm going to be the last guy. Everybody else did specialty shows. They all left. And I'm there and I'm anchoring with somebody who's probably 15 years younger than me. And not that that's a knock on them. It's just, I felt like I didn't graduate. I didn't progress. I didn't get any better. Berman left, Bob Lee left, Olbermann left, Kilborn left. Tirico left, Chris Myers left, Rich Eisen left, like they all left. And I was just there going, oh my God, I don't want to be laughed at. I want to be laughed with. And I got to get out. And I turned down a 5-year contract. And I went up, I was going to sign it. My boss said, all right, what's it going to be? Take it or leave it. And my wife had told me that morning, and I tell this story, I had 4 kids, ages 9 through 15, and she said, they're going to be all out of the house when this contract's done. And I'm like, all right, I'll be around. I get up there, I sit in the chair. Hey, what's it going to be? Take it or leave it. And bam, did my wife's words came right through the window. And I said, I'm going to leave it. And my boss couldn't believe it. And I said to my wife, I said, I'm coming home. She goes, good. She said, we'll sell the house if we have to. She had perspective. I had none because I'd been selfish for such a long time, working second shift. She's raising 4 kids under the age of 7. Like, holy shit. So, I moved my studio to be closer to home. So I'm there with my family as much as, they want to be with me. That's another thing. When you go home and you're like, I'm home. And then I got home and my kids were like, we got things to do, Dad. Like they weren't hanging out like they were 3 years old. So that was a reality check as well. But, I made the right decision and that, I'm happy with it. And I'll be happy with leaving after, I got 3.5 years to go and it'll go by quickly.
You still get along with Olbermann?
I don't have much communication with him. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out sometimes what's best for us, if there's common ground of things that we, talk about or like. I still have great respect for him. He's the best teammate I ever had on SportsCenter. He really mastered it. He was great at it. And people always asked, "Oh, did you talk politics?" We never talked politics, not one time. He got me a book on Winston Churchill because he knew I was a fan of Winston Churchill. That was it. When we were in ESPN, when we were in the building, we were doing what we were supposed to do and having fun with SportsCenter. We didn't socialize too much outside of that. But look, I was married with kids, and Keith wasn't. But yeah, there's always going to be this respect for what we did, when we did it, how we did it, because understand at the time, management did not want us to succeed the way we succeeded. In the infamous words of one of my bosses, we don't want another Berman, because Chris had gotten so big that, he had kind of escaped. And so they wanted the four letters to be important, not us. And I remember, Keith had this mindset of, F him, we're going to have fun with this. And we got yelled at a couple of times, pulled into meetings a couple of times, that they didn't embrace it. And which is surprising to a lot of people. They're like, why would they not embrace it? Because the four letters were more important than any other talent. And they wanted to let you know that. And that was very humbling, because we were doing some different things, and we had changed SportsCenter a little bit, and they didn't embrace it as you would expect. Even now, my former boss still gives credit to Bob Lee and Chris Berman changing SportsCenter or whatever, not Keith and myself, which, okay, that's fine. I know that's not true, but it was kind of sad that they still can't, acknowledge maybe what we did when we did it.
ESPN's a weird place, man. It's a weird. I liked it. They put my kids through college and all that kind of stuff, but it's a weird. Oh, jeez. DP, I love talking to you. I've kept you too long, my friend. Thanks for doing this.
It's great to talk to you, and good luck with this. Thank you for fighting the good fight there.
Hey, I appreciate you sending me those texts. Appreciate it very much, more than you know.
Thank you, Dan.